Matt, have you ever taken one of those? I know you probably had done Uber, but have you ever done an autonomous vehicle or a robotic car?
No, no, I've done Uber, yes, but I haven't done an autonomous car. Have you?
Uh, no, I have not. Um, well, I mean, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Closest I've got is in the Tesla with the self-driving thing, but I gotta say, sorry, Elon, but I'm not a huge fan. I've been in several of your models, and they're kind of tin canny. But
Right.
my daughter and we got picked up in one in Oregon, and oh my gosh, the thing was, I don't know if it had been used so much that the shocks were worn out, but it was like riding on a old hardtail Harley, you know. Bam, 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 bam,
Really? Wow.
bam. But anyway, you're live with the Risk Control Show. It's Steve and Matt, and we're here with another episode of the Risk Control Show. And you've guessed it, we're talking about robotic cars, those crazy things that are screwing up traffic in two places. One, which, if you haven't heard, is it's a great place for music. It's called Austin, Texas. The great tacos down there, by the way. You know what? The tacos down there are amazing. Velvet tacos. Oh my God, they're so good.
I didn't have taco when I was there. I didn't have tacos. I had good old Texas
Well,
barbecue,
I had
and
that too.
that was good.
Yeah, I had that too, and it is good. And but the tacos, my daughter and I loved it. But the other city that they're screwing up traffic is the great city of San Francisco. Like, it's almost, if you're gonna put any of this type of stuff, why in the hell would you put it in one of the busiest, craziest, traffic jammed cities in the world? Right?
And anybody who hasn't driven in San Francisco, like, you don't understand until you actually go there and do it. It's there's no other city quite like it. The congestion is insane.
Yeah, last night they had on the NFL prime time on Amazon Prime. They had the 49ers, and they showed what is that curvy street? Oh, now
Oh, Lombard Street.
Lombard
Lombard
Street.
Street. Yeah.
Nobody was on it. Can you imagine that? Nobody was on it. I think they
Wow.
blocked off the street because that thing's
They
always,
had to block.
yeah, that thing
Dude,
is,
they're all there's a car, there's a line of cars that are just going through it. And so and I feel like I wonder if the city pays the residents, because I know at one time they rose up and tried to put controls on that.
yeah, they should block it off. I was looking at the homes there, and I just thought, these poor people. I mean, I've done the Lombard Circle Street,
Yeah,
turn or
yeah,
S turn street, but uh man, if I lived there, I'd go nuts. I'd go nuts.
right.
Honking and beeping and people stomping on your flowers, taking pictures all day. I'd love to see those robotic cars do that.
Yeah,
That track. So we're talking about these robotic cars today because it's a big risk for cities and schools and counties, and there's a lot of unintentional consequences there. And not that I don't want to see these things out there. I think I think ultimately our society needs to move in some of these directions with and help. But right now,
right.
it's adding more congestion than it is actually helping. And part of that's some of the programming in the vehicles themselves. Other parts are, you know, collision detection systems and all kinds of craziness. But Matt, you want to tell our viewers a little bit more about the issues that have been going on in Austin and San Francisco?
Yeah, sure. So in Austin, I there recently was a traffic jam. It was a massive traffic jam for an extended portion of time. And apparently it happened because several autonomous cars, it looks like these particular cars are operated by Cruise, which is a sub company for GM, for their testing of these robotic cars. Apparently, several of these cars came to a dead stop and refused to move. So there's something in the system, and I don't think we have enough information. Like Cruise hasn't come out with exactly what happened, but they came to a stop in the middle of a busy thoroughfare, and it brought everything to a log jam of traffic backed up behind it. And it took a while because, of course, we weren't talking about human drivers behind the cars themselves had to figure out what the deal was, and I believe that Cruise ended up having to come in and not they didn't come in physically, but come in virtually into the cars to try and fix that problem once they became aware of the logjam. This was a Sunday morning, I believe, Steve.
Well, it was at night too, and it was funny because one of the officers, someone recorded, and the people behind him was like, "What's going on?" And this is crazy. Nobody's in the car. And there's rules on the books that say, hey, someone's got to be in control of the car, but it doesn't say that they have to be in the car to be in control of the car. So these companies are
Pretty
testing.
sneaky.
Yeah. So they have one of the officers on, and they said, well, what if the person in control is drunk, and would they get a Dewey? And they said, there's some guy sitting in the control room monitoring 50 cars, and you don't know if he's drinking or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So San Francisco, same type of thing, right?
Yeah, I didn't catch that. Why don't you give me a little bit more detail on the San Francisco?
San Francisco's they're having the traffic jam issues because
right.
And again, we call these autonomous, they're self-driving, but these are one step beyond. These are robotically controlled, so they're not only autonomous in that you're sitting in the seat, but they can be driven by a remote operator from
right.
a distant location, and that distant location could be thousands of miles away. So
maybe like a military drone, right? Like we've seen that in
absolutely.
Stuff. They control drones. They'll control the drones through satellites from thousands of miles away. They can be in a control center on a base in Virginia, and they're controlling drones in Iraq or Syria.
Right. And so these traffic jams bring to mind a couple of things that we've been dealing with on the emergency preparedness side of the house, which is all the internet phones. And when the internet's out, guess what? How do you make communication?
Right. Right.
And so same thing with the cell phones. Cell towers down, you lose connection. How do you make a connection with these particular vehicles? And so that is a big concern. And so same thing. I think this happened with the Teslas some time ago, where the internet connections went down, or the server went down at the main location. I don't recall what the technicality was, but there was an interruption in connectivity to the server, and people that were trying to use their phones to unlock their Teslas couldn't get in because that couldn't be verified. And I remember that news story. And don't quote me on that if it's a little off. I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm just saying that there's connectivity issues, and I think we haven't really found out the reason for these traffic jams per se. It could be software, meaning that when two of these get near each other, their collision systems
lock up.
It could be connectivity issues. It could be all kinds. I mean, you could run out of electric. I mean, who knows? So there's just a lot there, and there's people go, well, there's no real human harm in that, right? Like, we're not killing anybody. But
I got to tell you, I had a moment when you're describing the connectivity issues. I'm imagining like the back window of the car being like an LCD display or some kind of display, and showing the circle that we see on computers, or the hourglass, showing the hourglass, and like
I wonder if I have one of those videos right now. We just put it waiting, waiting, frozen.
Waiting.
Yeah, I got to say, do we need to have technology in every damn thing? I mean, it's like these ember cups and everything else. If you have to have a temperature gauge on your coffee, guess what? You ain't drinking. You're not a coffee drinker, okay? you know,
Right.
if you need a radio speaker in your coffee mug, you got problems, right? Like seriously, come on. Don't need
Right.
all of it.
Yeah.
If you need to warm up your coffee mug, like you're just not you're not a coffee drinker. I drink 18 cups a day. I don't care if it's hot or cold. I mean, it's nice when it's warm, but I usually drink it before it goes cold. And if
Of
not, I
course.
put a little topper on there. I don't need to. I'm not so sensitive that I got to go. Oh my god, it's 15 degrees
Yeah.
below where it's supposed to be. I can't. Oh, don't let it touch my lips.
Right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. But we're putting Bluetooth and condoms so we can tell how good we are at those type of
Right.
activities. Like, what what do you think? Where does all this stuff go? It goes in the environment, and our technology stinks.
Yeah.
How about this? How about I know I'm off on a tangent, but I love these tangents.
That's okay. This is great.
How about we fix the two-factor authentication? You're telling me I got a phone and you're going to verify that it's my phone, but you can't read the MMEID number, or you can't read this off the phone, but you can send me a text message that then auto verifies that it came there. Like, can you just do the stuff behind the scenes? So sick of all this stuff where you got to verify, verify, verify. Open this app, open this email, put in a code. Like, enough already. Like, enough.
Right.
I just let me use the apps. So,
Yeah.
anyway, point being is we got problems in this, and a lot of people will say, well, no one's getting injured or whatever. That's not true. Okay, I want to make that 100% absolutely clear. It's not true that when there is a traffic jam that people aren't having life-threatening issues take place.
Yeah.
And that's EMS, right? If I'm an ambulance and I'm going down this road because it was clear, and then all of a sudden all these robotic cars jam up and we can't get them moved, someone that I'm trying to respond to or take to the hospital, now it's stuck. And that
Yep.
person, his life is in peril.
Yep.
Responding to fires, that's another one. It was so funny because after this traffic jam in Austin, they brought on some the police officers and detectives and things, and they were saying like, "What do you guys do in these situations?" And he was saying, "Hey, we've had where crime scenes, crime has taken place on the street. We got the whole street kind of blocked off, and the autonomous vehicle just drives right through it and drives over the evidence, and drives through the crime scene, and that's a real problem.
Yeah.
That's a real serious problem, and also that if these robotic vehicles are not even sensitive enough to see that there's officers and flashing lights and these types of things, like how did that step get skipped? That's a big problem. And
Right.
so
Right.
I think, what we want to do is talk a little bit today about some of the solutions that a city or county could put in place. Now, Austin, the state of Texas, totally effed Austin and all these other cities because they passed that legislative bill 2055 and said cities can't restrict any activities of an autonomous vehicle. Now, why would that be? Why would you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. It feels like something like Texas as a state decided that they wanted more of this business, right? They wanted,
Somebody's in the
as
pocket of somebody. I'll tell you what, there's a
yeah.
dirty
Oh yeah,
payment
no,
somewhere.
no, it's no,
And you can say there's
you
not Texas, but I'm
yeah,
telling you there is.
right. Yeah, no, you're right. They wanted that, whether it's in the pocket or whether they justify it by saying, "Oh, we're generating thousands of jobs in this area because this center is being opened up that caters to autonomous vehicles or robotic vehicles."
Right.
Then whatever the reason is, Texas decided to implement that law that basically tells cities, "Hey, you don't have the right to regulate these cars. Only the state does." And the result is it doesn't sound like the state is doing much regulating with the cars given what we're seeing in Austin, correct?
Yeah. Right.
Austin looks like their hands are tied. They're not able to actually do anything to kind of control how these cars are utilized on their streets.
Right. Absolutely. So you can't restrict the activities in Austin. So I'm gonna put on there's a couple things here. I there was a book that was recommended a long time ago. It's called Rules for Radicals, and this was by Saul Alinsky. And this book is it's a dangerous book, and I'm going to throw that out there because I think every risk manager needs to read what individuals are doing to terrorize particular companies and force them into a state of duress to negotiate. And I think about legal contracts and things like this. If you're in a state of duress, that contract's not good, right? Like if a gun's held to your head, said sign this, it's not a legal contract. And a lot of times that's a virtual gun. It's these type of tactics that are being utilized out of this book, Rules for Radicals. And I think it was written for liberals many, many moons ago to help achieve certain equity and results in certain areas. And from that perspective, hey, it's good. But some of the tactics are dirty. They're very dirty. And
Right.
learn what is happening. Like as a risk manager, learn what is happening in your cities and with these organizations and what they're doing. This is a dirty tactic to say that the city cannot put in any restrictions on these vehicles. And I get that
Yeah.
they don't want to say, because a lot of people will go straight to the ban, no robotic vehicles. Well, you have
Right.
a constituency that you need to um, assist, that you need to serve. Like Matt, we were brainstorming. We heard some ideas earlier, and from people, and one of them was, ultimately it sounds great on the face, but ultimately it really hammers on the constituency, your residents, the people that live in your city, the business owners of the city, and you can't do that either. So you have to be really thinking long term. You got to be thinking about the second and third and fourth order of things. And that comes down to what are the unintended consequences of some of these policies. Well, this 2055 that they put in really limits the city, especially in areas where they have plenty of other restrictions on all types of vehicles. And I don't think,
Right.
this is akin to some of the legislation that Governor Newsom was supposed to sign, is saying that, hey, if a particular sexual orientation author writes a book, that book cannot be taken out of the school library. Well, why is that? Um, if that author were to write the anarchist cookbook, for example, is that
Right.
now you can put that in the school library? Like, no,
Yeah.
there's certain limitations that still need to be enacted. So, as a city in the great state of Texas, and again, don't get me wrong, I love Texas. Been there many, many times. My dad's old Air Force buddy was down in Texas after they got out, and we'd go down there as kids all the time and hang and play and do all that kind of stuff. But the
Yeah.
point here is, Austin's a tourist destination. Got a lot of tourists coming in. So let's look at, without restricting the activities of a robotic vehicle, because I think
Mhm.
we were trying to avoid the ban. That doesn't mean that certain routes, like your activity is, you can drive people, you can pick people up, you can remotely control the vehicle, you can drop them off at particular destinations. So, for example, hey, robotic vehicles cannot operate on a private road, right? So
Right.
that road is marked private. That road is owned and operated by an organization or a citizen, or I should say, resident or owner of
Yep.
the property.
Yep.
In those cases, that private road is only for private use. And so
Yeah.
a public robotic vehicle that is not carrying a passenger that has permission to travel on that road is not authorized to drive down there. So again,
Yes.
we look at certain areas where we have weight restrictions on the roadways. We have no trucks on the roadways because of particular issues, and so we may also be looking at certain zones where these vehicles cannot operate through, and it has to be a good legal reason, such as a school district or stuff like that, where there's
Right.
sensitivity to
Right.
these things. So these are ways that, without restricting the activities of what they do, but restricting the routes which they can take to conduct those activities, is another method to look at this. And I think
Right.
that's very important because, again, uh, there's got to be some way to restrict crime scenes, construction zones, these types of things, to keep these vehicles out of there when they may fault and not be able to be moved, um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
quickly and urgently. I think, we talked a little bit about whether or not these actually, like ride hailing, ride sourcing, actually is a environmental benefit. And, you know,
Because otherwise, everybody would be driving their own cars, Steve.
I know. God forbid, in the United States of America, we would want to have our own vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh, I, yeah. I think we talked about this the one day we did a project out in Rosemead, and we stopped after that. It was a super hot day, and we
Yeah, I
stopped at a
remember.
7-Eleven, I recall, and we picked up a beverage. We were sitting out there and just kind of, you know, talking and decompressing, relaxing a little bit. And this poor kid who worked at the 7-Eleven left, and he sat at the
Right.
bus station for, I think, 30 minutes. We were there at least. And then
We were there for a bit, and he
yep,
was there the
bus
whole time.
bus never came. He walked over to the other bus stop. The bus never came. He walked back to 7-Eleven. We ended up offering him a ride because it was like, seriously? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Uh, but when we start to look at the trip, and if I got to drive 5 miles to Trader Joe's and then back 5 miles, that's 10 miles. But if I'm ride sourcing it, that vehicle may be 2 miles away before it even comes to pick me up. Then it's got to turn around and go somewhere else. So we looked at a few studies, and it said that rider vehicle occupancy rates between taxis and Ubers, 30% difference on just the taxi versus the Uber. We looked at the carbon emission offsets, and they were saying that these type of ride sourcing vehicles create 50% more emissions, especially if they're non-pooled. And so there's some talks about the benefits of that, and
Right.
and things like that. But I think there was a solution that was thrown out, Matt, was buy a ghost town.
Okay.
What do you think of ghost towns? You're a road tripping guy. You love to stop and see all this crazy stuff.
Well, yeah, most of the time, though, the ghost town is an old cowpoke town, and they just got like dirt roads and gravel and everything like that. We don't got stoplights there, so they buy the ghost town and they pave the roads and put up stoplights and make it like a regular road is a. I mean, I almost think, dude, throw in a pro. I mean, buy a ghost town would work, but they could just buy a huge lot and construct a driving path grid.
Yeah,
You know, or
construct a course, absolutely.
yeah,
Like the proving grounds out in Arizona. Those
Mhm.
those are pretty cool. I think, yeah, ghost towns are good. I remember thinking about this, gosh, a long time ago. I was in Clear Lake, and Clear Lake's this beautiful little town.
Yeah.
Um, not too busy, but I always thought like, hey, smaller cities should partner up with some of these in order to do some testing. But now I'm thinking, you know, especially in regard to people that actually have to live and work with all this junk,
Right.
um, and these minimal viable products, these MVPs. And I got a whole nother series on MVPs. But when you're going to roll this stuff out, you really need to do some serious testing. And the MVP is a minimal viable product. And this was always talked about in business as, rolling out the minimal product, letting your customers utilize it so that you could improve upon the product and then come up with a great product or a new feature or something like this. And that's all fine and dandy, but you have to understand, especially as an organization that's producing these vehicles, your MVP, the MVP was always designed for the customer and the impact of the customer. And in this case, you're impacting everyone else that has nothing to do with your vehicle, right? And so you're out of the bounds of an MVP. You can't be throwing MVPs out there that are not covering the minimums of the impact to the others. That has to be taken care of. You want to throw out other features like improvement in GPS or some other feature that only impacts that user, that's great. But the MVP here has to be zero impact to everybody else and everything around it. So
Right.
because it's not in an isolated, contained environment now where it's just impacting you. And so I think that's important. I think the ghost town or the proving ground is a great way to do that. I think the auto manufacturers could bond together and buy a great big piece of land and create
Sure.
this driving course and make sure things work. Staff it with people to walk out in front of the vehicles, like, hey, enjoy yourself. Go see if it
Yep.
works. Like testing the
Yep.
bulletproof vest. Let's see. Um, so so that being said, I think there's if you look at these old ghost towns, you already have some structures there. You already have some roadways there. They've been abandoned, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Um, you know, you can house people there, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a great way to create these obstacle courses, see how these things operate, and you have to go again to third and fourth and fifth order things. I just recall speaking with my neighbor who did the software design for this, and his comment was, "We're just trying to figure out who we can kill," and that's a terrible thing to think of, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
No kidding.
yeah,
No
it's a
kidding.
terrible thing to think of,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So why do you have to do it in a live environment? Go put it,
Because yeah, stuff happens live that
yeah,
you don't anticipate. I don't care how brilliant you are or how extensive your flow chart of occurrences is, potential occurrences is, there's going to be ways that or things that you didn't consider to happen. When you add the human element, it just changes everything. I think about you mentioned a minimum viable product, and I know, Steve, I've talked offline with you about my own experience as a former computer gamer, where it was very common, and my understanding is it's still very common for for gaming computer gaming companies to drop a product that's not complete, really, that they essentially beta test with their customers, say, hey, spend $50-$60 on our game, and maybe in a year after we hear all your complaints, will put out a patch and actually give you a working game. That's another example of an MVP that is short of being the viability part of that. But the point is that there's another axiom when it comes to those kinds of programs, and that's until you get it in front of a human, you're not going to it like humans find ways to do things or think about things, how to do things in ways that you just can't simulate. Like AI, as much as AI is amazing now, has stepped
AI.
up, but you're right. It's not there yet. The crucible of human usage, it results in, like you said, unintended consequences. It results in things that nobody would have anticipated. Maybe in hindsight, you look at it and go, "Oh yeah, we should have thought of that." But but fact is that humans are always they're thinkers.
Well,
Yes, even
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
they're always thinking, how can I
how
how
can
can I
how can
attack
I
this
use this
problem?
some way else?
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. How can I use someone?
we
How
see
can I
that
attack
with
this
our
problem?
playgrounds, right? Oh, we designed
Yeah,
this thing, but the kids use it like this. Yeah, because that's what we have that is so great, imagination. You just said AI, and I had to laugh because a lot of people are relying on AI now to come up with solutions and probabilities and possibilities and numerations and all these types of things. And it's like, you know what? The computation and permutation of this thing is much greater than what this AI can even give you. We
right.
we did a podcast recently on the F-35 going missing. I asked AI to write a synopsis for our video, right? And it said F-35 does not pertain to your viewership or clients or whatever. And it's like, really? We were talking about the emergency response. How does it not pertain? And so it's
Right.
like so I said write it anyway, and it wrote it. But it's like, what the hell's
Why?
going on?
Yeah. Why did it even have that step?
Yeah.
That.
So
Yeah.
so now if you're saying give me a decision tree on for software, and it doesn't think it pertains to you, it doesn't provide it to you, and it if this is one of those landmark landmark conferences, right, where they go, you have blind spots, like you can know what you know, you can know what you don't know, but you can't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so it's
Right.
called a blind spot. And so here we have a blind spot, and we're getting these types of things. So really, like, if we need to stop this cutting edge is bleeding edge, and we're throwing things out there so fast and without any regard to anybody or anything. God forbid. California, all we do is complain about traffic. It's like a badge of honor to sit in traffic. I'm tired of sitting in traffic. And the last thing I
Yeah.
want to do is
Me
sit in
too.
traffic so that you can use me. Like, you better be paying me if
It's
you have a traffic jam. You know, like, why does my life have to be impacted so your stupid product can be put in place? So
right. Yeah.
so that's part of it. So another thing that I think states and cities should do before these things are released into the wild is, just like our commercial vehicles, we have bit inspections and all of this. We should have um, inspections for these vehicles to make sure that they are computing properly. Like, not only driving, but actually uh, hitting the scenarios that may pop up. And so there needs to be an emergency release button in these vehicles so that if an officer does come into a vehicle that's jammed, you hit the emergency release button, everything's shut down, and manual control can be taken over, or it can go into neutral and unlock, and the person can push it out of the way. I mean, that's just one of them. But cities could put in a permit. Like, you're not restricting the activities, but if they don't meet the minimum threshold to perform the activities in a particular way, then great, you can't operate in our city. So you could still put a permit in there that is not restricting the activities, but ensuring that at least all of the laws and regulations and standards that are put forth can be met, right?
Right.
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 So
Yeah.
there's nothing to say that, hey, yeah, you can pick up a person and you can drive them all over the city, so long as, so long as you don't drive through a crime scene, you don't go on unrestricted roads, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
So those
Yep.
are just a couple of the ways I think that you need to uh, look at this. I think the other thing that we need to do is get some specialists in here in our cities. There's got to be a lot of training and updates for traffic engineers. There's got to be some staff that are dedicated to going out and doing inspections of the vehicles themselves and things like this. Because again, um, we some of these things may get hit, slightly damaged, lose air pressure, whatever it may be. But these vehicles, from a safety standpoint, they need to be in better condition because now you're transporting all kinds of people all the time. They're in operation a lot longer, and again, if the sensors are covered or damaged or whatever, it may just provide a failure point. Oh, that sensor's not working, and it continues on. So I think that's important. Another thing, read Why We Drive. This is a great book, and it really talks about why human beings like to drive and what that means, and who some of the biggest sponsors of these autonomous and robotic vehicles. You said the Alphabet company was for Waymo or something like that, Matt.
Yeah. Good. Waymo is Google, is
Yeah.
Alphabet. Yes.
And so, in that particular instance, a lot of this is going into advertising. And I did hear that, a lot of these newer vehicles are tracking everything. They're recording your voice. They're able to tell your gender. They're able to tell your sexual orientation. Like there's a lot of privacy concerns in here. And I think when you jump
Able to
in,
tell your orientation? That's an interesting trick. Okay.
spooky.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I
No,
thought that was very
it
curious.
like why is that necessary? Well, so they can
Right.
advertise to
Yeah.
you and everything else. That's just spooky. And
Right.
it's talked about in this book, Why We Drive. So definitely check that out. I this is an emerging risk. I think new emergent risks on a daily basis with these things. I know we didn't provide a whole lot of info here, but when we look at this, we have to find ways to um, address the larger concerns with the restrictions that the state of Texas has placed on cities within.
Yeah.
And I think, without restricting the activities of the vehicles, you can still restrict what roads certain types of vehicles are operated on. Again, not that you're restricting the drive. You can still drive, you can still pick up, you just got to take a different route. And so that's not a restriction on the activity. Um, but I do think there's some real serious concerns, especially with the use of or the interaction with and destruction of crime scenes, backing up EMS and things like this. We need to make sure that those have, they're called interrupters on traffic signals. So when a fire truck is driving down the road, the interrupter hits ahead of time, turns light so that truck can go through. There's got to be certain interrupters that are placed on these vehicles as well, so that they know, hey, you got to pull over, right? You got to get out of the way. Like you can't come through here. So
Right.
but this is just that's another issue for cities because these are usually city operated and owned fire trucks and ambulance and police officers and all that kind of stuff. Police vehicles, cruisers. So there's a lot to it, man. There's a lot to it. A lot to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know all the answers, but I'm happy. I'm happy if you paid me to find out.
Exactly. We'll be happy to work to find out the issues if you want. Just just point us in the direction.
Just let us know. I mean, we're giving you a lot for free already. Golly, come on. But adding some staff that have some expertise in these areas is important, and getting your traffic engineers to start thinking about these things. And you know, can I just throw this out there, traffic engineers, if you're still watching, can you please stop putting 6 merged lanes all at the same point? Can we spread these out a little bit so that we can actually get on and get off of certain areas without all binding into one? If you think I'm joking, go to Boston and try to go to the airport where 9 lanes merge into 2, merge into 1 through a tunnel to get to the airport. Try that and see how you like it.
I've seen those. I've seen those. They're like, yesterday I was driving in Buena Park, and I was heading east on the 91. And when you get on the freeway at Beach, it's where the 91 and the 5 pinch. And those of you who are not from Southern California, yes, I'm using the and the highway. Sorry, that's the way we do it here. but but yeah, when you hop on, that roadway goes right on to the 5. Well, if I want to go on the 91 East, I have to scoot over like 2 lanes immediately after entering the freeway to actually get to the roadway. And I'm thinking, who designed this?
Right?
Like what? Why is this designed this way? All it means is I've got people from the 91s trying to scooch over to get to the 5. I got people from the 5 from getting on the beach scooching over to the 91. And what happens when
Yeah, the
two
best one's right
sides?
here when you leave over here and you go on the 110 north, and there's the 405 immediately, and you got to get over to the 91 or the 110
That's
and the 105. It's like,
yes.
seriously.
I hate that. That's why when I go to your place, I drive right up to the start of the 91 instead of even hopping on the 110. Yeah, that's
Hey,
a good example.
all right, we'll see y'all later with another episode. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to check out all of our cool stuff. We got the blog, we got Udemy, we got Dollar Training Club, and new clients are getting 20% off. Contact us now. And don't forget to subscribe and get all our lovely ding 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 videos. Talk to you later.